Welcome, zombie fans, to this week's episode of Reanimated. I am H.A. Conrad, here with my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Hello, HA.
It's a wonderful day, and we're podcasting, and this episode, like all of our episodes, is brought to you by our friends at Squarespace. Squarespace, it's a wonderful all-in-one platform to make it easy to create your own website. We use it here at Reanimated, and it's really easy to customize it, make it look how you want, easy to update. And if you want to try it out, use the offer code ZOMBIE, which is not case sensitive, throw that in there. And if you're a first-time user, you'll receive 10% off your purchase. So thanks again, Squarespace, for your support. And so, what are we talking about today, Stuart?
All right, we're gonna go back to The Walking Dead because there's just so much of it out there, and so we're going back to Fear the Walking Dead season 2. And often we don't review Fear the Walking Dead stuff until many years after it has aired. So we don't feel like we're coming late to this party in reviewing it like 6 weeks after it's aired. So we're going to be talking about episodes 1 and 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, and we got some zombie news.
Yeah, we do. But I should also point out that our Fear the Walking Dead experience was not necessarily positive the first season, so I think there was a little bit of a debate.
Yeah.
Or at least I was having a debate about whether even to watch it.
Yeah.
So that was part of it too.
I'd say
But
it got like a 50%, because there were 6 episodes, and I think I really liked 3 of them.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, let's hop into the zombie news, and then we'll talk about the first couple episodes of Fear the Walking Dead season 2.
All right.
So this first article came out early May, and several people sent it to me, and I read this and was like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea. And it is basically about the fact that a biotech company is trying to use stem cells to reactivate brain dead people. So the idea is that if you were in a coma, you're legally brain dead. There's like no blips in the MRI and all that. There's no brain activity. What they are doing is injecting stem cells to see what happens. And, well, part of me thinks that that's really, really cool. Part of me is kind of like, well, but what happens if you only, if somebody recovers like partially, or what if they're like in locked-in syndrome? I don't know. I think there's amazing things that we can do with stem cells, but to me, this seems just a tad unethical.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a very well thought out stance. I was just like, cool, let's do it. So maybe you should be a scientist and I should stick to like reading novels.
I just think, there's so much that we don't know yet. We know so little about how the brain actually works. And
So how are we going to learn unless we start injecting stem cells into people?
I don't know, but I just think it would be pretty horrible if this was your loved one that they were doing this to, and maybe you get back, I don't know, 5% of who they are, or, I don't know, like the things that they are doing here, I guess I understand it, but this just seems horrifying to me in the ways that it could go wrong. Maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe things will be all right. I feel a little bit differently if somebody maybe had brain damage from a stroke or something like that, and maybe had some function going on, and maybe you're going to see if things regenerate. But if they're fully brain dead and you're just kind of like, yeah, you know what? Let's just see what happens. I don't know. There's just something about it. I can't get my head around this to think that it would be a really good thing.
It could go terribly, terribly wrong. But
right.
This is why you have a living will.
I guess so. Yeah, but now there needs to be a new clause. No, I don't want my brain stem to be reactivated after it's flatlined. I don't know. And there's a lot of it's a lot more complicated than what I'm saying. Like the article talks about like different peptides and different things, and I'm sure they're going about this in the best way that they can. I just, I don't know that we're going to hear about their failures.
Well, I feel like there's just such an opportunity to learn here that. Yeah, I'll probably be. I could definitely come out on the wrong side of history on this one, but I feel like there's.
And also,
can't
you see a movie plot happening?
Of course,
with the failure of this. I mean, this is just really Romero territory here.
If they're not already in production on this film, I'll be disappointed.
Right. But anyway, and then next up, in the usual viral video, this one has been making the rounds, and if you haven't yet seen it, you should check it out. I personally could not deal with this woman screaming. Stuart very smartly watched this with the sound turned off, but this was a woman who was playing a virtual reality video game with zombies and was really, really freaked out. And I think it's cool that she was this into the game, but the screeching was really tough for me to take.
I am really enjoying all the videos that are out there of people flipping out on virtual reality or
Yeah.
running into the wall. Yeah, this is. I'm not gonna have a VR headset. I think certainly not for this incarnation. I'll probably maybe wait a generation or two.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I get to just enjoy it vicariously. People running into things and reacting in irrational ways. So
Hey, I think it's super cool. I think the idea is awesome. I don't know. I worry a little bit about well, I think it's cool that the technology is there, and I'm curious to see what they do with it other than just video games. But I think we're a couple of, at least two, I think you might be right, at least two generations away from something that's usable and affordable for everybody.
yeah, right now
So,
$700 I think is the going price for. I can't. I'm not. I don't know for sure, but I think it's around 700 for the Vive and the Oculus Rift or something like that.
yeah, I think it's going to go down. But I mean, I still think that that's actually not that unreasonable, especially if you given what the cost to buy an iPhone outright is. But I think I'm going to wait a little bit. It does look cool. The initials look cool, so we'll see.
Yeah.
And next, there is yet another new zombie film coming out, but this one is starring Ellen Page. And had you heard anything about this? I feel like we talked about this once before when they first started talking about it, the third wave.
Yeah, we might have, but there's also another movie called like The Fifth Wave that came
Right.
out recently. This though, when you read the plot, it sounds a lot like our good friends in the Walker family. From God, what the hell is the name of that show that got canceled that we loved and we reviewed 2 seasons of it.
There was a show that was 2 seasons. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
The
In
fuck
the
was that?
Flesh.
In the Flesh.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it reminded me of that too, and I said, okay, well, maybe this was their way of going at it or
right.
trying another angle, and
It's
we'll
coming out of. I
see.
mean, it's coming out of Ireland, not England, but maybe some of the creative people behind In the Flesh, are responsible for it.
Yeah, I could see that. Directorial debut of this gentleman named David Frayne, and apparently he had to do a proof of concept little prequel, and it went over pretty well, which was called The First Wave. So I want to see if I can get my hands on that if they release it. So we'll
Yeah,
see. So stay tuned. That should be pretty cool. And I like Ellen Page,
of
so we'll
course.
see.
She's like the most likable person in the
She's
world.
adorable. Um, and I'm gonna let you introduce this next one.
Where are we?
This is the TSA.
TSA. This is just dumb. I
It's
figured
dumb.
there's so much bad news about the TSA right now for anybody not following along with that. There have been dozens and dozens of news articles and reports about 3-hour waits to get through security and for domestic as well as international flights in the United States. Especially bad is Chicago, and I'm not sure. There's other airports out there that I'm seeing.
Florida.
In Denver, they're getting hit really hard. Just insane lines. And the TSA is saying like, "Oh, we're understaffed and we can't handle it," and people are like, "Fire the TSA and privatize." But whatever. This is besides the point. This story from Huffington Post is about how the TSA. I think this is actually from like their PR.
I
Like,
think it
look
is
at what we're
too.
doing. We're goofy, fun people. They had to screen a corpse prop from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I guess there's a new movie coming out, and so the article con, you know conjectures. That's not even a verb. They think it might be a prop for that film, and so you just see this like pretty realistic looking dead person going through the X-ray luggage scanner. It's cute.
It's
Of
cute,
course.
and also, I mean, come on, it's got to be really sucky to be one of the TSA people. It just has to be horrible. It's horrible to be the people in line, but to know how angry people are every day, that kind of negative energy can't be
No.
you can't just ignore all of that.
No.
It's gotta be the worst. And I don't know, like a couple months ago, it was coming up from Florida, and at the Orlando Airport MCO, whatever it is, and I, for whatever reason, got put into an automatic pre-check line and got through in about 2 minutes. My Bill, unfortunately, and some of our friends that we were traveling with were not so lucky, and they spent over 2 hours in the other line.
What were you doing for the rest of that time?
I was hanging out. I think I was snacking.
Went down to Wolfgang Puck, had yourself
Yeah,
a
pretty
salad.
much. That's kind of what I was doing. And I kept checking in on them, and they were like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "You don't want to know."
Third margarita.
Yep.
Well, fun. But
So
yeah,
anyway, and the anger that just is there that they have to contend with is pretty rough too. And I'm not saying that they're faultless.
For potential flashpoint for revolution in the United States.
Right. Right. But anyway, at least this was a little bit on the lighter side, and they seem to be having a good time with it.
Oh, yeah, that is from their Instagram, from TSA's own Instagram.
There you go.
Okay, well, fine. Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame there, TSA, where people aren't yelling at you. And then The Verge.
Yeah, The Verge. So this little Errol Morris documentary, it's pretty short, but it is a smallpox documentary. And the subject matter is about why we have not yet eradicated the smallpox virus in some of the different labs around. So apparently Russia has it, I think we have it, and I feel like it might be one other place. And nobody wants to pull the trigger and just completely destroy it. So it's an interesting yet terrifying documentary. I leave it to you to check it out. But it's... I have mixed feelings about it, but the whole argument that, the gist of it is that people don't want to destroy it because they're afraid somebody else might have it and use it as a weapon.
Okay. But now people aren't getting their BCGs or whatever you call it.
Right.
They're not getting their shots anymore. I mean, were you inoculated against smallpox?
I don't think so.
I was, because I was born in Asia.
Yeah, I think if you were overseas, you did, but not in the U.S. So that's a problem. But the thing is that you don't need smallpox to do the smallpox vaccination. You just need cowpox.
Or monkeypox is another one that they were using.
Right.
Yeah, and there was another round of inoculations in the military at the beginning of, right after 9/11. There was a lot of scares about that kind of germ warfare being used. So a lot more people got given that shot. And it's a nasty shot because it's like an open weeping wound that's a biological hazard for 30 days. So you have to dispose of all your, it's weeping, so you always have nasty bandages, and you have to dispose of them in a biohazard,
like a biohazard container.
Did
it scar?
Yeah, and then it leaves a big old round scar on your arm. Of course, I had mine when I was an infant, so I just have a dent, a sizable dent in my arm. So that's nothing compared with my anthrax shot, which flares up every 6 months into a bunch of bumps in my arm that are really itchy.
Oh.
8 years later, I'm still getting these. So yeah,
that's
I had a
horrific.
lot of fun injections in the military. I remember my first day, I got 6 shots. Just to they're like, oh well, you need to get up to date on everything at once. So they just,
Ooh.
I think the nurse had syringes between all of her fingers and just went at me.
Oh, that does not sound fun at all.
Join the military, serve your country.
Yeah, get inoculated.
Get so many inoculations. Anyway, I think that's it for news.
Yeah, so let's hop into Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, where we are on a boat.
We are on a boat. Although we're not quite on... Well, I guess, yeah, we are on a boat when we start. We're on the Zodiac.
Yep.
This, tell me what you thought of this opening.
I thought it was okay. I mean, it's kind of what we were expecting. They leap right into it, which I guess is good.
Because we pick up right where we left off.
Yeah, pretty much.
Except it's nighttime. It was
and things are burning.
Yeah.
Lots of things are burning.
Yeah.
Couple of questions though.
Uh-huh.
I guess I understand the whole thing about taking. So where we left off was that Liza asked her ex-husband, to kill her because she was bitten and infected.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. And, their son was clearly upset about it. You can understand that.
Yep.
But I don't understand about taking the body with them.
Yeah, I have to assume it's just like a throwback to, we need to give her a proper burial. We don't want her to just get eaten, because she probably would have got eaten, I guess.
Really? She's
Don't
dead.
they-
Nobody's going to touch her.
They don't. Okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's such like they leave a bunch of luggage on the beach
Yeah.
because things break down in their little getaway.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of this scene. The only part of the getting off the beach that I liked, which was the part that we've actually already talked about on our podcast, which was Propeller Face. I thought that was a really cool zombie kill.
That was a cool zombie kill.
It's a cool zombie kill and cool effects. But yeah, I didn't really. It seemed like the zombies all of a sudden were like right on them.
Yeah, they came out of nowhere, and this has always been one of the things that I think is, to me, the consistency of how fast or slow they're moving. So you see them kind of off in the distance, and then suddenly they're right up there. So
Yeah.
it's a little annoying, but whatever. I guess you have to move the plot along somehow.
And there weren't a lot of zombies that were apparently in that neighborhood when they got there at the end of season 1. So it was a little strange to think that, like, okay, it's been an hour or two, but now the city's under some kind of special effect looking artillery attack. So I don't know why the zombies would be going towards the shore. There's so many like visual things that would be, we know about these zombies in this universe. They're attracted to things like firecrackers and explosions and fires. The Walking Dead Prime, the main show has used like a burning legal pad thrown in the street as a distraction for zombies, right? So why these like 40 or so would be running or going towards the coast directly to our happy heroes doesn't seem totally clear to me. Yeah, I guess that's really it. It's just that their priorities seem a bit off with moving her body onto the boat and then
Leaving
zombies
supplies behind.
who knows what was in those bags. Maybe it was just like clothes, but they do seem to leave a lot of stuff behind on the beach. And then the final Zodiac leaving the beach shot is pretty clearly CGI.
Yeah.
The way the boat moves on the waves just seems unrealistic. But that's fine. At least it was like a high octane introduction to the season.
Yeah, and it jumped into action. A lot of the criticisms you and I had of the last season was just how slow moving it was. And, the appearance of the walkers wasn't, there wasn't a ton of them. It just took forever to get there. So I feel like they just kind of decided to put it all out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So then they get to the boat. Strand has this like, this isn't good at all reaction, and is like, this is going to get very bad for us. And he's just looking out. There's a lot of lights out on the water. But it's like he just had this realization that, his giant yacht is also going to be a target.
Right.
This kind of becomes a theme for a lot of this season, I guess.
Yeah.
And for the 2 episodes that we watched, it's also a pretty major theme, is that like, now we've got this thing that's great, but everybody else is going to want to try and take it from us, and how that reality is also another new thing for everybody to get used to.
Well, it is, but so part of what I didn't like about that theme is that I just feel like if everything is going to hell, are you really going to be spending that much time looking for this yacht and wasting fuel to try to take it? That was a piece that just was a bit of a plot hole for me.
I see.
And there is, especially in this episode, you've got a lot of Alicia being stupid, murmuring into her little, I don't know.
The radio thing?
Yeah, like that whole thing seems kind of stupid, and I just feel like there would be so many easier targets out there, and basically, to me, more low-hanging fruit in terms of like boat targets as opposed to this one, that I don't find it and I know, I get it. I get what they're trying to do here, but I just found it to be a little ridiculous. Like in that big ocean and along that coast, why are you going to even bother wasting resources to go after this thing?
There's a few things in this along that vein that are annoying. The fact that it's frustrating that Strand is the only one who's willing to pilot or he's like, this is my boat and I'm gonna be the one who stays up all night piloting it, because then they also seem to keep sailing or drifting really close to things that they really shouldn't be close to, like a boat with 40 people on it. They're within yelling distance of it,
Right.
instead of just being like, hey, let's turn the wheel 2 degrees to the right and go nowhere near that thing.
Right.
Instead
And
of
then
just
and then
suddenly they're
even the
there.
arguments when they do that. So you've got Maddie being like, "We got to go and get them." And it's like, "Are you serious?"
Because
Like,
just one look at that boat and you realize that you would basically be in the same situation that those people are if you let them all on your boat.
right. And it's terrible and horrible, but I feel like these characters have been through enough. I mean, they've been through enough at this point where they should be understanding what that means. So just the whole thing with Daniel and how Daniel only let them in, sort of not against his will, but because he understood that if you can't let everybody in. And then at the army base, when they get overrun there, like they've seen enough situations where I feel like Maddie wouldn't have been saying this.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it does seem like a stretch.
Just in order to protect their family. They have sacrificed a lot at this point. I
Yep.
feel like they would always there wouldn't be these questions, and Strand wouldn't have to be making these sort of authoritarian comments that you can't do that, we can't stop. And I just don't think, I think more people would support him than everybody kind of getting all self-righteous about it.
Well, nobody wants to be talked to that way. But yeah, like you're saying, like the thing is, there's no argument there. It's just, yeah, okay, we should just keep going. And hey, why did we even get this close to these people?
Exactly.
Really, is my point.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the episode, they're like apparently just idling, or they turn the engine off for some reason when Nick jumps in the water for dinner.
Yeah, I didn't
And
understand
they're
that
just
either.
idling right next to this yacht that's been tipped over. And they it's kind of misty, but still.
It's misty, but you can still see, I mean, it's a pretty big yacht. And that's the other thing. I just feel like these people have been through enough that they'd be a little bit more cautious. And you're not going to be that, and especially Strand is so paranoid. I just don't buy him sort of like throwing the anchor down in a spot that he would see as vulnerable.
It seems as the season goes on, and I know you're not 100% up to where we are in the season right now, but as the season goes on, there's even less reason for them to have ever stopped.
Right.
Ever. Like, because there are agendas at work. So
Right.
it doesn't make sense that they'll even stop to like dump what's her name's body over the side. They'll just be like, oh, all right,
Well,
we're gonna
and
keep moving.
especially Strand's agenda. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not going to tell you whose agenda, because
Well, no, I mean, I know enough at this point to know that there's other stuff going on, and there's
Yeah,
also
okay.
a time frame in which they have to do it. So yeah,
Right.
you're correct.
Right. There are other factors at work. Lots of moving pieces.
Yeah. So, and I do like the idea that we're in this sort of closed area. I like the fact that you're on the boat, you get to see interactions with these different characters. That it isn't that you're building up that character development. I just feel like it could have been done a lot better. And there's no reason why you would have to sort of artificially throw in these little plot points. I feel
Which plot points are you referring to?
the whole we need to stop for these people,
Yeah.
the whole swimming off like right by the yacht. And then the other piece is so they come along, Nick and Chris are just sort of like swimming around the water, and then Nick's immediate reaction when he sees the overturned yacht is to swim to it.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah, exactly. And it's
that's
just sort
not
of
good.
it's just like, okay guys, like you know that this is a dangerous situation because there are reanimated corpses in the water. So
Yeah.
I just feel like you're not going to swim over there and sort of see blindly what is there and gets the yacht log.
That definitely flies in the face of like painting Nick as this like well-honed survival instinct guy. Like
Right.
that's his superpower, right? Because
Right.
he's an
He's
addict
just
and he's survived on the streets. I'm pretty sure he didn't survive on the streets by like going willingly into a dangerous
well,
type. Yeah,
right. And it would have made more sense to me if he went in there actually looking for pills. Like if we just see that motivation,
sure,
that still would have made more sense. But no,
sure.
he wants the yacht log. It's like, dude,
It
really?
would have made more sense for Chris to do that boneheaded move because
Yes.
that's the kind of thing they have him doing later in the show too.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris is pretty boneheaded, so yeah.
Yeah, but Nick, like they're doing a pretty other than that particular maneuver, they're doing a pretty good job of making Nick like the most sympathetic and interesting and coolest character on the show.
Yep.
I don't know if that's their what they're really trying to do, but you know, he reacts. It seems like he reacts the right way to almost everything, except for
Yeah.
when he starts sniffing around people's houses for drugs and
Yep.
creating a terrible catastrophe.
Yep.
But like you know, Chris jumps in the water. Nick's the first one diving in after him, trying to save his life, or at least
Yeah.
talk to him. Um, you know, he's the one who's like taking the Zodiac and going back to shore for his family. Like he's the go-to guy right now. He's the
Right.
Glenn, if you will.
He is the Glenn, and I do like him overall. It was just these little moments that just didn't add up for me.
Yeah.
And again, it just a really easy thing to do, and I just you have so much talent. You have a lot. You have a following. You have great writers. You have a good cast. This is a good cast, and it just to me feels like they're wasting a lot of those cast members.
Well, Ruben Blades Salazar, Daniel Salazar had a pretty good episode too.
Yeah, no, I really
People
like
kept
him.
coming to him for like advice,
Yeah,
and he's an interesting character because he's got all these demons, but you know, and he's got his relationship with his daughter, and now he has in the past come across as a bit too much of a hard ass and like a I want to torture everybody and you know kill
but
everyone.
now people are coming to him for his advice because he's seen the ship before.
He's seen yeah because he's seen shit before and because he's like a quiet fisherman
Right.
and he plays a mean like drum on his torso when he's talking to Strand. I thought that was a really funny
That
scene.
was pretty funny. I really loved that scene between them.
Yeah. So, but I thought that, yeah, definitely this episode. The next one is a little bit less for him, but this episode, the first one, Monster,
Yeah.
is a good Daniel Salazar episode. I like the fact that they showed people fishing. Like this is a way that they've got the desal, they can fish for eel, as nasty as that probably is. I feel like they do have a shot, and it kind of is a nice glimpse into this potential survival scenario. But of course, the show wants us to believe that it's untenable because of piracy.
Right. And also, what is Alicia's just going off into corners talking to random people for hours on end and nobody notices this. This is the
But he
other thing
sounds
that
like a cute boy, you know? So,
yeah.
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 It's insane. It's maddening.
It is maddening.
But this is a show with how many teenage characters? I mean,
I
so
know.
I guess just two.
Well, three.
I assume
Well,
just
no,
Chris-
because Nick's
Chris and
Nick's
Alicia.
older. Nick's
Yeah, I
older.
think Nick and Ophelia are both in their 20s, I
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah. And I really did love the whole thing between Nick and Ophelia a little later on. I think it is in an episode too where he's like giving her advice about her wound.
Yeah, that also rang a little bit false or weird to me. He's like, put ointment on the pad. I'm like,
Yeah.
what fucking ointment are you talking about? Like any ointment? Can you be specific?
I think he's trying to be helpful.
I know he is. And he's like, ice helps with the pain and drink vodka. That's funny. He should have just led with drink vodka.
Yeah, that would have been good. But I did think their interaction was kind of funny. So,
Yeah, they might be the show based on that interaction and I guess a couple of others, but there's nothing really spelling it out there. Ophelia's character is pretty underused. It might be one of the ones that you're
that is who I'm
referring
referring to because there's
Yeah.
just so much that you could do with that, especially with her relationship with her father,
Yeah.
with Daniel Salazar. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and maybe they will be doing that. Maybe like we'll see more with her, but it just feels like at least at this point, it felt like they weren't really doing anything with her.
No, but it does seem like there could be a chance at
Yes.
a little relationship with her and Nick, since they're age appropriate, and since he, like I said, like he just keeps going around saying the good thing, the right thing to people. Maybe
Yep.
that's part of his survival technique.
I think
just
it is.
the gift of gab. So we also have Travis and Maddie, who just seem really tense and stressed out all the time, which is probably where I would be, frankly.
Hmm.
Like, short fuse, pretty pissed off, getting punched by my teenage kid. Um, yeah, and then Chris is just the worst kind of teenage character.
Yeah, he really is. This is an example of how not to write a teenage character. He's just super annoying.
I just hate it when they have to be so one-dimensionally unsympathetic like this.
Well, right, because you could see them using him in a way where yeah, he's upset, but he understands. He's just sulky and, as you said, one dimensional. There's just nothing there for him, and he just does stupid stuff all the time. And then you're kind of like, well, then why would they want to save him? You know, like I don't mean to be. I mean, I understand why his dad wants to save him. I don't understand why Strand wouldn't just be like, you know what, we're gonna like pull up the anchor, just leave him there. It's better that way.
Yeah, because I don't remember
Given his
many.
opinion, given his opinion of children generally,
Right. Yeah.
their dead weight.
Um, were there any like positive scenes with Chris in the first season other than when he breaks into that house with Alicia and they break a bunch of that's not great either. They break into somebody's house and break all their shit.
Yeah, but that
But
was still at least better because they were just being silly
because yeah,
teenagers.
he was smiling a little bit, but I don't
Right.
remember that many like positive scenes. I guess he's on the roof. He's the one who sees the flashlight or whatever across town,
Yeah.
but that turns into nothing. That's a throwaway plot point. There's just nothing. There's nothing redeeming about him for the audience. And as a writer for a show, I feel like you have to keep that in mind. Like, hey, if nobody wants this guy to live, it's not that much fun to watch him
Do anything.
going through the motions. Yeah,
Right.
and I think this is going to continue as we keep watching this season. Unfortunately,
I know. And my guess is that they're going to try to do at least something with him to turn something around, perhaps. But I still want him to die.
yeah. Every so often, yeah, they give him a line that's like, oh, maybe there is a normal person in there, but we'll see when
Yeah,
we
but
get
it's not enough.
there. No. So yeah, our characters are. Strand is also being super annoying. Where I guess we're all kind of sick of his shit. The fact that he refers to or he relies on an argument of like property
Right.
meaning anything
I know.
in the post apocalypse is pretty laughable. He's like, "This is my boat." I'm like, dude, you are outnumbered. It
Yeah.
was nice of you to let them know that you had a boat, but these guys
Well,
were all heading to the desert, and you were like, "Hey, no, let's go to my house." And then, oh, now that we're in my house, let's leave my house and go to this boat. And then he's
right,
gonna
like you
start
were
being like,
you were the one who invited them.
"Yeah, just seems, yeah, I don't know. It's an odd argument to try and make. Like, do as you're told here, because I own this thing. When
Right.
that's that's a pretty that's a hair's width from him just getting killed
Mhm.
and no longer owning anything.
Right. Although I do like him as the realistic character just in terms of like being real about what the new world order is to some extent, like even when he's talking to Nicholas and to Maddie and he's being a jerk about it. I guess there's ways that he could spin it, but that's just not his character. And that's never been his character from the moment they set him up.
I guess not.
So, but do you want to get into episode 2?
Yeah, sure. Episode two attempts to, or maybe it was actually episode one. They attempt to justify Nick's going into the yacht because he comes out with the log, the ship's log,
Exactly.
and that tells them that San Diego's been burned, which tells them that then informs their decision to try and find somewhere to get more information, right?
Right.
So, which is why they go to the island, and they're being chased on the sonar or whatever
Thanks
on
to Alicia.
his ship to ship radar. They're being chased by a boat that we don't really see.
Yep.
Yeah, and so dumb.
I know. See, that this whole thing is just really that just drove me crazy. But the upshot is that they end up on this island, and part of why they chose to go there is that there's a ranger station. So, hopefully supplies. Hopefully, but as they're thinking that maybe more there or guaranteed more there than at other places. And plus, it's an island, so hopefully not many walkers.
Yeah. And this episode I liked better than the pilot
Me too.
right off the bat. I kind of so we get introduced to this survivalist family. They're I don't know. Survivalist is what they are, but they're the spin off of it, right? They're like they were already loners and isolated people beforehand because they live on like a ranger island.
Right.
But it's a bit of a weird spin because the dad has this weird thing about
Maoris.
Maori people and dying where you live or whatever it is,
Yeah.
dying in your land or being buried there or whatever. And what I thought was cool about this is that they actually talk about Cliff Curtis's actual heritage. Although he's not like a New Zealand American or Maori American, he's like a New Zealand Maori guy. But I thought it was cool that they aren't trying to make him like some other ethnicity that would make more sense in LA.
Right. They're just making him a Maori.
Yeah, like you are a Maori guy who now lives in Los Angeles, and I don't know how big of a demographic chunk that is of that population, but I thought it was cool at least that they are like, you know what, let's make you Maori. And then so this guy George and his wife are obviously an interesting bunch. His wife is played by what's her name? I forget, but she was in The Shield. She was cool. She was a cop on that show.
Nice.
And
I don't
they have
remember
3
her
kids.
name either.
What do you think of the opening for this episode?
Thought the opening was pretty good. So it's basically you see 2 little kids playing on the beach. You see the walkers coming up, and you think that they're done for, and suddenly the walkers come up to a fence, and they can't get in. And then I thought, the kids are leaving them offerings. So my immediate thought was that they somehow knew some of these walkers, but maybe not. Maybe they're just kids playing. But you're of course, or at least I was of course, thinking of Lizzie a little bit.
Right? Yeah.
Wondering if these kids were a little off or just playing or whatever. But so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But there's always I thought that the dynamics between the family on the island and those from the Abigail were kind of interesting. I mean, George is clearly a survivalist. He's skeptical of these people, and Travis is trying to explain that they're not a threat, and George is like, there's definitely a tension there. And I think George is more realistic about what the world is like, and at least we see that Travis understands where he's coming from finally.
Yeah. I think George seems like a solid dude. It's just he's a little bit crazy. And
Yeah.
his little, like, yeah, sure, he's got this whole suicide pact thing all lined out, but I don't think, like, it was never really clear to me when he intended to do the Jonestown thing.
Yeah, me neither, although we do find out later in the episode that his wife is suffering from MS, so maybe it's like if they get to the point where she can't go on, that's what the decision is, and then they'll take Seth and Harry and Willow with them.
Yeah,
who
I guess
are the kids.
that's the gist, is that there was no scenario where one of them would die and the rest of them wouldn't just all go along with it, I guess.
Right.
Because the way that Harry describes it, the power pills are to keep the family together.
Yeah.
So, but we also learn from Harry and his Action Man dolls that George has been killing everybody else on the island who's turned. Or George and Seth, maybe. Yeah,
George and Seth. And, they look at it as taking care of business and keeping the family safe, which you kind of have to respect.
And it's just the suicide pact part of it that I don't get.
Which is kind of weird. And, I mean, I do like the other conversations that happen between George and Travis when they're mending the fence. Where George is just like, no, this is how the thing is. There aren't going to be rescues. This is how it is. And you got to basically keep things going.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not giving up. I'm mending the fence. Literally, that's good. That's a good line.
Yeah.
But that to me doesn't. Yeah, I still have trouble with the suicide element of that. I mean, that's before Travis even knows about that. But he's also like, he can tell that this guy is fatalistic. That they're not going to try and get off the island and find a safer place.
Right, but what is really that much safer than the island?
Nobody. I mean, sure, this guy has heard all of the ranger stations around the country going offline. He's like, half of the country everywhere west of Colorado has gone dark.
Right.
But, you don't know if you've never left your island, which they don't.
That's true.
So.
And then there's the whole thing with Melissa, the mother who has MS, and talking to Maddie. And, I guess I find it, I understand if you're living with somebody like George who is trying to get them to do the suicide plot, that the idea of sending your kids off and away from that would be appealing. But you don't really know this group very well. I don't
I'm
know.
pretty
I don't.
sure just anything would be better than the idea of giving your children suicide pills.
I guess.
And she's measuring Maddie up in that first conversation.
Yeah,
she's
that's
talking
true.
about teaching and whether or not
No,
you
you're
like
right.
kids.
All right, I'll stand down from my comment.
That's my gut instinct. Is like there's no scenario where I could stomach that idea.
Right.
I don't know.
I do like the scenes with Nick and the kids, with Willa and Harry. They're pretty cute. And he's just again showing his ability to get along with people, and he is like, despite some of his nastier tendencies and the things that we don't like about him, this is the thing, you do like him, or at least I like him.
Oh yeah, he's eminently likable.
So, which makes the Chris character even more annoying. So I don't know, because he's drawing with the kids. The kids are all cute with him and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing to notice.
And he tries to pull Chris out of his shell too. Mm-hmm. Just be like, hey, come and hang out with this 7-year-old or whatever. It'll make you feel better, maybe. But then Chris actually does reach out to a person in this episode, even though it's not necessarily a connection.
No,
that's like a strong one. But it seems like at this point he goes after Seth and is like, hey, what are you doing? And let's hang out or whatever. Yep. And then gets really into killing zombies. Mm-hmm. And which
upsets his dad, Travis.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the scene, I on the one hand, I'm like, Chris, I think what you're doing is cool. Like you should totally be doing that. Travis, back off. But then it's the attitude again with that Chris is like giving him when he kills the last one and walks by his dad. He's like, okay, I'm all done or whatever. Just so much of that teenage attitude that makes me want to just slap a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what they're going for, and it's working. But oh my god.
Yep. What else in this episode? Yeah, and then we have the little reveal with Strand's secret conversation in this, which is laying the plot for the next episodes.
Yeah. So he's got someone waiting for him, and Salazar's also finding his maps to right. Mexico and his MP5. Which is a handy little weapon to have. I don't know why he's got it locked up. I feel like that should probably be sitting on the coffee table somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what else.
Well, do you think that it was... This is a question that they asked on Talking Dead after this episode. By the way, they had the actor who plays Chris on this episode of Talking Dead 2, and he was defending... the hatred that he's been getting on Twitter about being
poor guy.
such a an angry teen, and he's like, look, this kid just lost his mom, he's going through some stuff, and I believed him then. I don't know if I still believe him. So on Talking Dead, Chris Hardwick asked if this was like their poll, do you think it was Nick's fault that Willa found the pills and took her suicide pill?
I think she already knew where they were.
Conjecture.
I think kids get into things.
Kids do get into things. Yeah, and this is another thing. George, why wouldn't he have these things locked up?
Yeah, he can lock up everything else, and you have them in this weird little globe. I don't know. It was just, to me, that was kind of a stupid plot point. Yeah. He's so careful about everything else. He's not going to have those just hanging out.
And I especially like that Nick can look at these pills and
know what they are
and identify them immediately. He's like, I know my pharmaceuticals, and these are poison. I'm like, you can put literally any powder inside gel caps. I don't know how you would figure that out. It could just be crushed up aspirin for all you know. So I thought that was kind of annoying.
Right. The other thing I found annoying was the whole ring around the rosy exchange between Alicia and Willa.
But that's the name of the episode. We all fall down. We have to...
Yeah, I understand that, except that...
they wouldn't have a name for the episode if they didn't do that.
Well, they can do it, except that, it's like that song. I know that there's a huge debate about it, but it's not about the Black Plague. So,
Oh, you have a
yeah.
differing theory, do you?
Well, it's not a differing theory. It's just that references didn't start happening that it was about that until much later. If it it's just really not what it is. So it's sort of like, I don't know. It's
I
just
think we'll need
annoying.
some references to back this up.
Just go on to Snopes. You'll find it.
Oh, Snopes.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Alicia is a teenager, so she's entitled to be wrong.
I
I'm
guess
fine with it.
so. I mean, the other piece is that the lyrics for this there's so many different lyrics, and then this one is kind of happened later. So, they're a little bit of what they're saying is that the whole idea that it was about the Black Plague was one that was made up to match the specific lyrics that we are all familiar with. So,
Mm,
but anyway, but I digress. Just a little piece.
okay.
Annoying to base the episode around it. That's all.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, episode ends with clearly, obviously, Willa. Here's the thing that I don't understand. So, the mom comes downstairs. She has convinced Maddie, who has convinced Travis to take the children, right? She comes downstairs. She's like, they'll be right down, which means that she was just with them.
Yeah.
Or
So how did Willa get
maybe
into
she was
that?
like yelling at them through a door. But I'm assuming she was talking to her kids like, "Hey, come downstairs. I need you to see somebody or talk or go, you're going on a trip." So she was there like 45 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And
For that to
then
happen to Willa so quickly was kind of not plausible.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
then Harry comes down. He's like, "Oh, something's wrong with Willa." And then apparently she's been dead for a while and cuz she turns as soon as Melissa picks her up. And then it gets confusing because everybody's like, "Oh, get away from her." And he's like, "She knows." And then she tears out Melissa's throat, and George is like, "I'm just gonna sit in here and get eaten too."
Yeah. See you guys later.
I really just don't get that motivation.
No. No.
It doesn't matter to me how into the idea of being in the same dead place as your family.
Nope. And
Who
then
wants to
poor,
get eaten by their family?
and then they take Carrie and they're into the boat, and Seth, like, does the whole, like, I don't know. I mean, he's been raised by his survivalist father, so it's not like I find that implausible, but this whole thing was sort of lame.
But when I consider that George's philosophy doesn't make sense to me at a basic level, the fact that Seth is like his, also devoted to it, then I'm just, oh, fuck it. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I know.
Why wouldn't he want to get on this boat right now with these people and just go somewhere else with his only surviving family member?
Right, especially now, especially when we see what's coming after him on the dock. That just, to me, is like, okay, this is insane.
And then why isn't he willing to just have his mother eat him and his little brother? Isn't that his plan?
Right.
But instead he's shooting her. So I'm like, wait, what? Who?
Yeah.
Do you have a suicide thing going on, or are
Or
you like
not.
gonna try and survive now in this compound just you and Harry?
Right.
So it seems a little bit wishy-washy to me. And it would have been nice to have two new cast members, although a little kid like that could have been really difficult, especially if they go to season 3 and Harry's now like tween,
True.
as is a problem that Game of Thrones has definitely run into.
I know. I know that awkward stage.
Yeah, yeah. So good riddance, Scary Family. I thought I was gonna like you guys, and then you all went out in bizarre ways.
I like the idea of them, and I like the idea that this was a little contained episode, and then they're moving on. But there are just parts of it, again, plot holes galore, things that just don't make sense, driving us crazy.
In a way, the drive the boat down the coast and just stop at islands is a great way to do a procedural zombie show.
True, true. What's
You
going
know,
on this island? Yes,
our
totally.
overarching plot is us traveling down the coast, but each episode is going to be like a monster of the week, except it's always zombies, and we're just going to go and pop into the shore to see what's happening.
Right.
But
So,
I don't think that's necessarily how the season's going to go. Any other takeaways from this episode?
not really. I mean, had I just been not thinking about, reviewing this and talking about it with you, I probably wouldn't have continued on after these 2 episodes. But there was enough. I heard a couple spoilers that made me want to watch the next episode.
You
So,
have watched it, right?
yeah.
Okay.
No, but what I was going to say is that in advance of the next episodes or the next pieces, I think everybody should catch up on the little webisodes, which are the Flight 462 piece of this.
Yeah, and actually, the coming the special preview that they show you during Talking Dead
Yep.
showed off a scene with Daniel Salazar facing off against all these zombies coming over a dune, and there's like a 1 millisecond shot of a woman running past him, and during Talking Dead, Chris Hardwick was like, "Yeah, people have been recognizing that that's the chick from Flight 462."
Yeah, yeah.
So it was kind of like a known thing, and people were really psyched for that. Those
Well, right,
two
and
things
as
coming.
you and I have said, like the Flight 462 was one of the most enjoyable parts of Fear the Walking Dead, and it wasn't even part of
Yeah,
the main
and
thing. So
apparently it wasn't always planned to have them come together either.
no, I know, but I think that the popularity they had to listen to that.
Yeah,
So well done.
way to capitalize. But yeah, so I guess next time we'll be covering 3 and 4.
Yep.
What are those called? Ouroboros, which is the snake that eats its own tail, from Norse mythology.
Yep.
And Blood in the Streets. Oh, quickly, we should talk about the viewership for these episodes.
Right.
Significantly less than the main show.
Yep.
And significantly less than...
The first season.
Well, actually not significantly less. First
But
season
less.
started out at 10 million. This season started out at 6.6, and then the second episode was 5.5.
Yeah, it dropped.
Walking Dead, the original, I think still going around or in the teens for sure.
It is.
So, but that show like breaks records as far as audience.
Viewership.
These are probably more like reasonable, especially when it's competing with Game of Thrones.
Yes.
but
Which I am
aside-
really loving, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you got your zombie Jon Snow. What else can you ask for?
Well, and we've also got a reunion that I never thought they would ever let happen. You're used to people kind of missing each other, and I really didn't think they were going to allow that to happen without spoiling it for anybody.
Yeah. But yeah, so we will come back again in our next episode with those two, Ouroboros and Blood in the Streets, and
Yep.
continue our little 3-hour tour.
But I would like to hear if anybody else has watched these first two, I would love to hear opinions, whether they are in agreement with us that there's some problems with it, some problems with character development, or whether we're being too grumpy and other people are really loving it. So shoot us a tweet if you like. ReanimatedPcast is our handle, or send us an email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. And I would like to hear comments.
You heard it, people.
Yeah.
This is her podcast. On her podcast, you do it the way she says, just like
Our
Strand.
podcast.
No, okay, yes. Send them on in, people.
Great. So until next time, ciao.
Bye bye.